Hello everyone, and welcome back to another reading. First things first, this tank top brought to you by the fact that my house is very, very hot right now. You might be able to hear the fan in the microphone. My house is very hot. Half of the vents were essentially fixed shut in my home. And it's very hot. But we got to get this reading done, so we're going to jump in. I hope you guys don't mind me looking a little extra casual today. First off, a huge thank you to my patrons. You guys are amazing. A couple of new people have joined. Thank you so much. If you would like to join them, there are links to do so in the description. There are other links to support the channel if you'd like to do that as well. There's also social media in the description as well. Oh boy, I'm turning into a real YouTuber, aren't I? And, it's that hot. Wow. I think instead of dwelling on just how hot it is, this is 50% ice, we're just going to jump back in to The Legend of Luke by Brian Jacques, chapter 13. The days that followed were sunny and uneventful, and good progress was made by the little ship Honeysuckle. She was ideally built for skimming the coastal waves, responding quickly to any vagrant wind, slip tide, or rock shoal by just a touch on her tiller. Chugger was a constant source of amusement. The little squirrel had promoted himself to captain, still keeping up his new identity as a villainous sea rover. Fulgrim and Trimp often had to stifle smiles and chuckles at his antics. Swaggering about the deck, armed with a stick for a sword, he growled out orders to all and sundry. "Get my victuals cooked, or I'll throw you to the sharkers! Keep a tiller straight, Mr. Furmo, or Captain Chug make you scrub a deck! Or sing a funny song, or I'll chop your tails off!" Gonf saluted him smartly. "Captain Chugger, sir, I've checked the provisions, and we're running low on everything. We need more victuals." Chugger stroked his chin reflectively, as he had seen Martin do, and waved his tiny paws irately. "Well, sail the ship to the shore and get lots more victuals. Don't annoy me, mouse. I'm busy being captain." Gonf looked to Furmo. Well, we do need more provisions." The shrew chieftain tacked the vessel artfully across two cresting rollers, watching the shoreline intently. "We'll sail till evening, then put into shore. A night on dry land'll do us good. Tomorrow will be enough time to send out a foraging party. If the captain approves." Chugger was binding a colored shrew headband around his brow to make himself look more dashing. He nodded. Good. That's what we do. All hush now and quiet. Captain Chugger take his nap." By evening, the weather had grown noticeably brisker. Fulgrim pointed shoreward to where the beach was sandy and rock-strewn, dotted with dunes, and backed by grassland with stunted trees and bushes. "Best chance to landfall there afore the light fades." Leaning on the tiller, Furmo sent the Honeysuckle skimming towards the beach. Wading ashore, the crew took the ship's bow line, and waiting on Furmo's word. Watching the incoming waves carefully, he yelled as a high one caught the stern. "Take her in, me hearties! Heave!" Without any difficulty, they ran the vessel up high and dry above the tide line, where it lay safe. Dinny immediately trundled up the beach, pleased to be on dry land, calling back to them, "There be an old boat up yer. I thought 'twere a rock." Upside down and half buried in the sand, a boat lay, long forgotten on the deserted shore. Fulgrim viewed it wistfully. "Wonder who it belonged to." Trimp ventured closer, peering into the dark cavern formed by the upturned craft. "I don't know, but it'd make a snug shelter for the night. We could get a fire going and make a decent meal with the last of our rations. Come on, it'll be fun." Before any beast could stop her, the hedgehog maid stooped and scurried under the wrecked hull. "Yeah!" She came scampering out hastily, a huge red-backed crab chasing her, its claws open and extended aggressively. She hopped clear, but the crab stood just outside on the sand, menacing them, protecting its shelter. It was joined by another crab of equal size and ferocity. Trimp was shaking like a leaf, and Chugger hid behind her. "It's a big spider! No, two bigger spiders now!" Martin stayed Fulgrim's paw as it strayed to the axe he had taken for the vermin. "Easy now. Killing's not necessary, friend. They're not spiders, Chug, they're crabs. Pretty big ones, too. But not to worry, our prince of mouse thieves knows how to deal with crabs, don't you, oh chubby one? Gonf bowed low, muttering to his friend, Less of the chubby one, matey. He turned to Trimp. Fear not, pretty one, crabs and I are old chums. Vermo, build a fire over yonder and bring me 2 long pieces of wood, will ya? Stand clear, the rest of ye. Whilst Vermo and his Gaussum shrews built a fire of driftwood, both crabs held their ground, never going forward or back, but scrabbling sideways with their fearsome pincers wide open, giving out danger signals to the intruders. Gonf took the 2 long wooden spars offered by a shrew and bound them at both ends with rags soaked in lamp oil, keeping an eye on the crabs. These should do just fine. Now watch this and remember, mates, a crab's the daftest creature living. Once he latches onto something, he won't let go, unless it's food he can push into his silly mouth. And these poles ain't food. He charged the nearest crab, with the pole held out horizontally, shouting, Come on, old shellback! Bite on this! Clack! The creature's powerful claws seized the pole. Now, one for your pal there. Bite on this, stalk eyes. Gonf thrust the second pole at the other crab in like manner. Obediently, the fearsome pincers grabbed it. Boldly, the mouse thief stood a hair's breadth from both crabs and turned his back on them to face the audience. You see, they ain't got enough brains between them to let go of those poles. And why they're hanging on to them? They can't hurt us with their nippers. Now, I'll stand here. Now, they'll stand here like this till the crack of doom if I let them. But there's the best way to get rid of crabs. Watch! Taking a blazing piece of wood from the fire, Gonf raced nimbly around both crabs, touching the flames to both ends of each pole. Agitatedly, the big crustaceans continued their sideways patrol, stalk eyes waving wildly in the firelights they were carrying, stumbling and tripping in dumb panic. The mouse thief advanced upon them, swinging his crackling torch. You rock-back doofs! Go on, get out of here before your nippers get burned! Go on, into the water with you! He chased them a short distance down the beach until the crab's tiny brains realized the answer to their burning problem. They scuttled off sideways into the sea. Gonf skipped back up the beach, chuckling. Ain't got the sense they was born with, these two. Every beast waited whilst the fearless Gonf went beneath the boat hull with his lighted torch. Come on in, buckos. The place is empty. Gaussum cooks like nothing better than to improvise with their cooking. That night they did the crew proud. Barley dandelion tea, and the pièce de résistance, a big pan lined with thick slices of honey-soaked shoe bread, into which they placed all their dried apples, pears, and hazelnuts, mixed with the last of their fresh berries, black currant, strawberries, and raspberries. The pan was covered with a flat slab of stone and placed on the fire. After a while the aromas drifted temptingly around in the shelter formed by the upturned boat. Whilst Fulgrim was not looking, Chugger emptied his barley broth into the otter's bowl and sat happily, licking his seashell spoon. Come on, Mr. Fole, eat up all your barley broth. You won't get no pudding. See, Chug eats it all his up. Yum, yum. The scarred otter tugged at his friend's bushy tail fondly. Ain't it strange how a bowl can fill itself up again? You're a 40-faced little skimlanker, Captain Chug. The pudding was perfectly cooked, a triumph. Every beast had their bowls heaped, and they tucked in willingly. This is marvellous. Best I ever tasted. Piping hot and delicious. Right, girtly nice and terrible tasty, it be. Any chance of second helpings there, Cookie? If yous want to end up in the sea with your crab mates, Gonf, just keep calling me Cookie. Oops, sorry, oh well-fed and beautiful Gaussum boss. Oh, all right. Pass your ball here. Outside, the night grew cold, with a stiff wind driving sand spirals across the shore. Fortunately, the shelter was in the lee of the wind, and they sat around the cheery fire amid good food and banter. During a lull in the conversation, Trimp cocked an ear to the opening. Listen, can you hear anything, Martin? Martin listened. Aye, like a sort of moaning. Fermo refilled Dinny's bowl. Probably the wind. But Martin's paw was on his sword. He leaned forward. It's not the wind. Listen carefully. In the silence that followed, they all heard the audible moaning from the outside, eerie, ghostly. It seemed to fade and rise with the lonely wind out on the moonless stretches of the coastline. Vermo shuddered. Don't sound like nothing living to me. This remark started off a lot of fearful speculation. Mayhap 'tis the spirit of dead beasts. Aye, mate, could be the long-dead crew of this boat. They say strange things happen on lonely shores. I've a tale of that too, that they come back on dark nights to visit the spot where they perished. Oh, Russell should have stayed aboard he boat in he sea. Hark! I can hear him singing words. Sure enough, the words came clear and distinct. Beneath the boat, fur stood on end, paws trembled, and creatures drew closer to the fire. They could not avoid hearing the wailing dirge, which rose and blended with the sighing winds. From the deep cold seas afar, spirits of the dead arise, rattling bones and sightless knees. From the deep mysterious sea, wandering lonely beach and shore, we must walk eternally, wandering, seeking evermore. When the pale moon sends its light, or in dark and starless nights, roaming near and traveling far. Shrimp's face was blanched with fear. Chugger was trembling like a leaf, and she hugged him close to her. The breath caught in her throat as a spectrally hollow knock sounded on the upturned hull. Whack, whack, followed by unearthly sounding noises. Leave the coast, desert our shore, or stay here forevermore. Go by land or go by sea, heed these warning words and flee. Martin looked at the terror-stricken faces all around him. Drawing his sword, he turned to the only one beside himself who did not appear to be affected by the eerie chants. Well, what do you make of that little lot, Gonf? The mouse thief drew his dagger. Don't know how a ghost could be solid enough to knock its paws on a boat hull, mate. You stay here in case it's some kind of trap. Take care of these dithering daisies. I'll go and take a look out there. Gonf slid out into the night. A moment later he reappeared, a great deal faster than he had left. Martin gripped his friend's paw as the dagger slid from it. This was not like Gonf, who sat ashen-faced and trembling. The warrior gazed into his haunted eyes. What is it, mate? What did you see out there? Gonf swigged down a beaker of dandelion and mint tea. He regained his composure slightly, though it was some time before he managed to speak. I tell you, matey, I never want to see aught like that again. Tall they were, very tall, with horrible long faces and long white bodies that seemed to float and flutter about. One of the Gaussum shrews recoiled in horror, his paw shaking as he pointed out beneath their shelter entrance. Ah! I'll see one! There it is! A vague, misty shape was gliding about outside. Martin sheathed his sword and seized a long paddle. I've had enough of this nonsense. Let's see what these ghosts have got to say for themselves. As the apparition drifted by again, Martin struck out with the paddle, giving it a good hard sweep. The ghost gave a yell of surprise and collapsed into a heap. Martin grabbed the struggling mass and dragged it inside the shelter. Ripping off the flowing white cloth, he exposed a hedgehog on stilts. The creature's face was daubed thickly with some kind of white clay, and long seabird feathers were stuck into the clay. Blackened beneath the eyes and painted bright red above the mouth with plant dyes, it gave the hedgehog a fearsome appearance. It glared at Martin defiantly. I don't know, aren't you the bold sea rogue? Go on now, Cully, kill me and get it over with. That fine blade you carry looks fit to do the job. You dirty mother-in armadurin'. Martin grabbed the hedgehog firmly by its clay-encrusted ear. Listen, my friend, keep a civil tongue in your head, or I'll box your ears for you. We're not sea rogues, and we don't go about slaying others willy-nilly. A huge grin cracked the white clayed face. Mother of all the seasons, now ain't that a mercy? By the spikes of me fat uncle, doesn't that fine pudding taste as good as it smells? Could you not serve up a big morsel of the lovely stuff? And were you not... could myself not sit next to that pretty darling Ogmate was to show her the powers of me terrible appetite, sir? Martin was smiling as he extended a paw. Well, I'm Martin the Warrior of Redwall, and these are my friends, who no doubt will introduce themselves." The hedgehog shook the preferred paw vigorously. "And 'tis pleased I am to meet you, Martin, sir. I am Murpho, son of Chief Doonspike, all-coast champion spine tussler." Gonf immediately took to Murpho. Sensing in him a kindred spirit, he exchanged a wink with the newcomer. "Don't you think you'd better ask your dad and the others out in the weather, Murpho? They'll catch their death of the cold, stomping about in long white nighties on a night like this. Go on, give 'em a shout." Murpho stuck his head outside and roared. "Hoy! Da! These beasts are friends, and they've got pudding on the hob. Bring the boyos over, will you?" In the blink of an eye, the shelter and the beach surrounding it was packed with hedgehogs, all untying stilts from their footpaws and casting aside their long white ghost robes. Murpho's father, Doonspike, was possibly the biggest hedgehog Martin had ever laid eyes on. Introductions were made all around, with Doonspike offering his apologies for frightening them. 'Tis sorry I am for putting the fears into honest creatures like yourselves, but we've seen the sleek boat of yours afore, so we'd be forgiven to thinking that you were the dirty cut of a fox and its flotsam that usually sail in it. Yes indeed, Martin, me old son. Now, isn't all this grand?" As one, all the hedgehogs nodded and chorused, "'Tis grand indeed, sir." Fermo scraped his ladle around the big pan, commenting, "Sorry, there ain't enough pudding to go around all your tribe." Chief Doonspike accepted the last bowl and passed it to his son, shaking his head ruefully. "More's the pity, but those who don't get none will never know what they missed out, and you'll be known worse for the missing of it. Here, me son, get that bowl down your gob, and don't tell your old da how grand it tastes." "Bad," says to this rotten tooth of mine. "It won't abide the sweet stuff and torments the very life of me if I go anything near sweetish, so it does." All the hedgehog spikes rattled as they shook their heads and chorused in unison. Yes, the old tooth torments the big fella terrible." Trim could not resist asking the question. "But why do you go parade around the shore at night, dressed as ghosts?" Whilst Doonspike sat nursing his tooth, Murpho explained. "Sure, to scare off the sea vermin. They're all superstitious wretches. Scaring them is far simpler than getting half of our tribe slain in battle. It works just grand, missy. Ain't that right, boyos?" Again, all the tribe nodded their heads and spoke together. Yes, works just grand." Still nursing the side of his jaw, which looked painfully swollen, Doonspike glanced admiringly at Martin's sword. "Well, by the spike of the great Og himself, 'tis a grand and powerful blade you have there, Martin, sir." Martin unsheathed his sword, holding it forth for all to see. "Aye, that it is. The hilt was my father's, and the blade was forged by a badgerlord from a piece of falling star what fell from the skies. The sword is a magic weapon." Doonspike shook his head in amazement. "Magic? You don't tell me. How so?" He did not see the wink that passed between Martin and Gonf. Martin turned the sword so that the red pommel stone and its hilt top twinkled in the firelight. "This stone can soothe pains and heal wounds." The big hedgehog chief stared reverently at the stone. "And toothaches?" Martin smiled. "Aye, toothaches too." Digging a hole in the sand with his sword point, he pushed the sword in upside down. He held it in the deep, wet sand until he judged the stone was cold enough. "Sit down there, sir. Gunf, will you get the other side of the chief and hold his head?" Doonspike sat down gingerly. Gonf braced the hedgehog's head still by leaning against the uninjured side. The hog looked uncertainly at Martin, who was withdrawing his sword from the sand. "You won't be going to hurt me now, would you, Martin?" The warrior smiled reassuringly. "Me? Hurt you? I'm not even going to touch you, chief. 'Tis the pommel stone that does all the magic. Sit still and relax." Very gently, Martin began moving the cold stone in slow circles around the patient's swollen jaw, murmuring as he did so, "Easy now, easy. How does that feel? Nice and cool?" Doonspike closed his eyes, leaning heavily against Gonf. "'Tis grand, like a butterfly's breath on a morn spring. Don't stop, Martin. Keep doing that. Round and round, me old rotten aching tooth." Martin whispered soothingly in Doonspike's ear. "Round and round with the magic stone. That's the stuff. Is your tooth in the middle of this area I'm circling?" Dunespike sighed contentedly. Yes, 'tis so 'tis. Gripping the cross-hilt with both paws, Martin whacked the pommel stone hard and sudden right at the middle of the swelling where the tooth was located. Thump! Yo! I'm destroyed! He's killed me! Ah! The entire tribe of hedgehogs leapt forward. Martin swung his blade aloft, halting them with his fearsome war cry. Eulalia! Dunespike stopped roaring. He opened his eyes, felt the side of his jaw, and spat out a blackened molar. Ha ha! Look at that now! I'm free of pain! Me old tooth's out! Ha! Seasons preserve your grand name, Martin, sir. Trimp put a pawful of sea salt in warm water and stirred until it dissolves. She gave it to Dunespike, saying, Take this and swish it round where the tooth came out, sir. 'Twill clean out the hole and help it heal. The big hedgehog patted Martin's back so heartily that he almost knocked him flat. Sure, I wish you'd done that when we first met. Then I would have been able to tackle that grand pudding of yours. Martin Redwall, you're a mighty creature, sir. Historical you are! The Dune Hog chorus echoed their chieftain's sentiments. Ah, yes, historical indeed. Isn't he the grand mouse? Oh, that he is, grand. Murpho appealed to his father. Da, would you have Martin and his friend sitting in the night under some battered old boat wreck? Sure, 'twould only be good manners to invite them back to the roundhouse. And that's where we'll call it tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad you did. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy the reading, please like, share, subscribe, and please come back next week. I'm so glad you could join. Hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you guys. You guys are all amazing. Thank you again to my patrons. If you would like to join them, there is a link in the description below. Be sure to check that out, as well as other links and other information that, who knows, you might like. With that, I'm going to get out of this boiling closet. I hope I see you guys again next week. Be safe. Wash your hands. I hope you have a good week. Bye, guys.